The xenobiology wing of Hellion Station was never meant to feel intimate. Sterile lighting, pressure-sealed doors, the soft pulse of nutrient tanks. The entire place was designed to remind its occupants that science, not emotion, ruled these halls. And yet Dr. Elias Wynn felt anything but detached the moment he heard the door unlock behind him. He didn't turn. He didn't need to. For 3 months he had learned the subtle cues of her presence. The shift in air pressure, the quiet hum of her symbiotic mantle, the faint scent of iron-rich blossoms that always lingered around her. Dr. Wynn, her voice carried the lilt of the Arixian upper caste, smooth, resonant, almost melodic, and beneath that grace a sharp undertone he'd prayed he'd never hear aimed at him. "Fortunate," she added, "to finally find you alone." Elias set down his datapad and exhaled slowly before forcing himself to face her. Princess Lirae of House Sithari stood framed in the doorway, tall and breathtaking even by Arixian standards. Her skin held a soft silver luminescence under the lab's blue lights, and the long, elegant points of her ears angled forward, Arixian body language for focused intent. Or worse, anger. Her eyes, deep violet, slit-pupiled, unblinking, fixed on him with unsettling precision. "Your Highness," Elias said, keeping his voice level, "this is unexpected." "Is it?" She stepped inside, the door sealed with a hiss behind her. "You can help me, Dr. Wynn." He blinked. "Help you?" "Yes." A single step brought her closer, close enough that he could see the faint bioluminescent patterns shifting across her cheekbones, a sign of emotional strain among her people. "You can help me understand," she said, "why you have been avoiding me." Elias' stomach tightened. Here it is. The confrontation he'd dreaded since the first day he'd turned down one of her invitations. "I'm not sure that's—" "Do not insult me." Her tone sharpened like a blade sliding from its sheath. "You decline every engagement I arrange," Lirae continued, pacing toward him with deliberate calm. "You leave rooms when I enter them. You redirect conversations the instant I attempt to speak with you beyond professional courtesies. I am not oblivious, Dr. Wynn. I've been focused on my research," he said quietly. "Lies." The single word cut him open. "I have studied humans these past 3 months," she said. "When someone feels interest, they move closer. When someone respects another's work, they engage. You," her voice trembled imperceptibly, "act as though my very presence endangers you." She stopped an arm's length away, close enough that the warmth of her biolights brushed his skin. "Am I a threat to you, Dr. Wynn?" she asked softly. "Is my species?" "No, then what?" Elias opened his mouth, closed it. 3 months spent building lies came crashing down around him, and he had nothing left to hide behind. "If I tell you," he said, "you cannot unknow it. And I cannot guarantee your safety once you do." Lirae's pupils widened, not with fear. Arixians didn't fear easily, but with realization. "You are speaking of classified matters." "Yes, and you kept them from me. To protect you." She went still, motionless, silent in a way that made Elias' heartbeat thunder in his own ears. Then she said, "Very well, but not here. Tell me where you believe we can speak freely, Dr. Wynn." "My quarters," he said reluctantly. "They're isolated from the main network. I can activate full privacy protocols." Her brow arched. "You wish me to enter your private quarters?" "It's not about that. It's about security." Lirae studied him for several long seconds, eyes searching, assessing, calculating. "Lead the way," she said at last. They left the xenobiology wing in tense silence, while night cycle lighting bathed the empty corridors in shades of amethyst and teal. The few personnel still awake paused to stare. Elias Wynn and Princess Lirae walking together was a sight Hellion Station had never seen before. Gossip would be spreading already. Inside his quarters, Elias sealed the door, activated privacy scramblers, then locked down his personal terminal, an offline system wired with ancient hardware specifically chosen to avoid digital interception. 3 months ago, he began, pulling up encrypted files, I was asked by human colonial intelligence to consult on Arixian communications. A linguistic project, low profile, but I found something they weren't looking for. Lirae's expression shifted, her mantle dimmed. "A message," she whispered. "A pattern," Elias corrected. "Buried deep inside metaphor, encoded through poetic structures your people use only in wartime. Structures no human algorithm could detect." He turned the terminal toward her. "There is a faction inside your military," he said quietly. "A powerful one. They intend to overthrow your mother and eliminate you first." Lirie's skin lost its glow, her breath stuttered. Her voice, when it returned, was barely a whisper. Who? Elias swallowed. Commander Heshar, your mother's strategist. Her jaw clenched, and your personal attendant, Verena. The betrayal hit her like a physical blow. Her knees weakened, she caught herself on the edge of his desk. You knew, she whispered, for months. Yes, and you avoided me. To protect you, Elias said, finally meeting her gaze without flinching. If they saw you near me, they'd assume you suspected them. They'd kill you immediately, and the evidence wasn't strong enough then. I needed time to decode, to track, to build a case strong enough to bring them all down at once. Silence heavy, breathless, then Lirae stepped closer, so close he could see the shimmering fractal patterns in her irises. You carried this burden alone, she said, and let me believe you despised me. Elias exhaled shakily. It was safer if you did. A long, quiet moment passed. Then, with a calm that shook him more than her anger ever had, Lirae said, show me everything. Everything. Yes, Dr. Wynn. If someone seeks my death, I will not face it blind. Her voice softened unexpectedly, and you will not face it alone. Elias felt something in his chest loosen. Relief, fear, and something. Princess Lirae didn't speak for several seconds after Elias finished explaining the first encrypted thread. She stood perfectly still, her silver-lit skin dimming in quiet shock, her violet eyes flicking across the floating symbols on his offline terminal. When she finally exhaled, the sound was thin, controlled, wounded. This cannot be real, she whispered. Commander Heshar raised me. He taught me tactical reasoning before I could even read. He stood beside my mother in the Draxian conflicts. His loyalty is absolute. That's what makes him dangerous, Elias said gently. He's respected, untouchable, perfect for a coup. Lirae's jaw tightened. And Verena, she has served my house for 12 years. She knows every facet of my daily movements, my charts, my routines, my vulnerabilities. She's been passing that information to the conspirators for at least 8 months. Lirae closed her eyes, her mantle dimmed to a soft, hollow gray. For the Arixians, that color meant grief. Elias swallowed hard. He wasn't used to seeing her like this, unmasked, stripped of royal certainty. She always carried herself as if carved from starlight, tall, sharp, untouchable. Now she looked devastatingly human. He hated seeing her hurt more than he should. Why didn't you tell me sooner? She asked quietly, eyes still closed. Why carry this alone? Elias hesitated. The truth felt both simple and impossible. Because if I came forward too early, he said, Heshar would have buried everything. The evidence was fragmented, symbolic, too easy to dismiss. I needed time to confirm every connection, every covert transmission, every financial shell. And during that time, Lirae said, opening her eyes slowly, you avoided me. I had to. If they saw you near me, they'd assume you suspected something. Your life expectancy would drop to minutes. Lirae stepped closer, the glow returning faintly around her cheekbones. So you made me believe I had offended you, in order to keep me alive. Elias forced himself to meet her gaze. Yes. Something shifted in her expression, hurt melting into understanding, then reshaping into something Elias couldn't quite decipher. A softness he'd never seen from her before. You were willing to let me think you despised me, she said quietly, to prevent the coup from accelerating. I'd do it again, Elias admitted, if it meant you stayed breathing. For a moment, Lirae simply stared at him, the patterns in her irises expanding with an emotion her species didn't have a clean word for. Something between admiration and the edge of danger. Then she straightened, royal composure returning like a cloak settling onto her shoulders. Show me everything, she said. Every code, every transmission your people intercepted. She sat beside him, close enough that her biolights cast pale silver across his wrists, and Elias began laying out the lattice of hidden messages. Each metaphor, each coded illusion. Each anomaly only a xenolinguist with a terrifying amount of patience could isolate. With every revelation, Lirae's expression hardened, an encoded supply routing, a disguised chain of command shift, a hidden transfer of funds to a dormant military account. This is treason woven through poetry, she murmured. They hid revolt in our cultural symbolism. That's why automated systems never flagged it, Elias said. Arixian encoded literature is too contextual, too sensory-based. Only someone fluent in both human algorithmic logic and Arixian metaphor could decode it. And that someone, Lirae said, turning to face him fully, was you. Elias felt heat rise to his face. He quickly looked back to the screen. It wasn't just me. It was, she corrected softly. You saw what no one else saw. You connected threads hidden from the crown, from our military, from my own inner circle. Her voice softened further, and you protected me without expecting recognition. Elias forced a shrug. It's my job. No, Lirae said. Jobs do not make people carry impossible burdens alone. Loyalty does, or something else. He froze, her gaze lingered on him a moment too long. He cleared his throat quickly. We don't have time to linger on that. Lirae's lips curved in a faint smile. Then let us focus on our next move. She examined the data for several seconds. We cannot confront Heshar or Verena, she said. Not yet. If they sense suspicion, the coup will accelerate. Agreed. Then we must be subtle. We gather proof. Identify every conspirator, track their communications, map their assets. That's exactly what I've been doing for 3 months. And now, she said, leaning in, you will not do it alone. Elias felt something inside him loosen, relief sharp and warm. I'll share everything I've found. You will also share your predictions, Lirae added. You have a gift for pattern mapping. I want to know what you believe their timeline is. Elias hesitated. They'll likely move soon, he admitted. Before the next cycle, they need visibility, a public stage. Lirae's expression sharpened. The Unity Convergence Gathering. In 2 weeks, Elias confirmed. Every ambassador, every dignitary, maximum chaos, maximum planetary visibility. Lirae rose to her full height, regal, commanding, luminescent. Then we have 2 weeks to dismantle a rebellion. Elias stood as well. And 2 weeks, she added quietly, for me to learn why a human xenolinguist was willing to risk his reputation, his safety, and his sanity to protect a princess he barely knew. Elias swallowed. We should focus on the conspiracy. For now, she agreed, but her eyes told him the conversation was only postponed, not forgotten. A soft chime broke. The archive chamber Lirae chose wasn't on any public deck map. Elias had walked past the sliding steel door dozens of times without knowing it existed. When he arrived the next morning, he found her already there, standing before a holographic star lattice, violet eyes glowing in the dim light. She didn't look like royalty in this room. She looked like a strategist, a general, a woman who had decided what she would do and what she would risk to survive. Close the door, she said without turning. Elias sealed it and activated the manual lock. Did anyone see you come in? She asked. I used the maintenance routes. Good. She finally faced him, expression unreadable. We must map the conspiracy before they move. Once they deploy their forces, we lose control. Elias placed his data pads on the table between them and projected the web of encoded communications. The patterns spiraled outward, names, transmissions, routes, assets, sharp and elegant like a deadly geometric flower. Lirae stepped beside him, close enough that the soft pulse of her mantle lit the side of his neck. Begin, she said, and so he did. He walked her through each coded stanza, each metaphor, each poetic thread that masked the rebellion's movements. Lirae followed everything with unnerving speed, her mind intuitively grasping the cultural symbolism woven behind the data. Here, Elias pointed, this stanza references a shattered crown, a metaphor used only in aggressive succession plays. And this, a bridge smothered in starlight, refers to a covert detachment being positioned near your mother's command vessel. Lirae's jaw hardened. They intend to isolate her. Yes, while assassinating you first. They need the political justification of avenging your death. Lirae was silent for several seconds. They will fail, she said finally. Elias believed her, but failure didn't mean survival would come easily. The plan forms. Hours passed. They layered maps, movement projections, encrypted ledgers, whispered trajectories. Lirae's insights sharpened Elias' models. Elias' analysis refined her strategies. Piece by lethal piece, the conspiracy became clear. 19 high-ranking officers, 7 civilian operatives, 3 black-budget financiers, and Commander Heshar the linchpin. They're positioning assets across 4 systems, Elias murmured, zooming out the star map. This scale they've been planning for years. Then we will unmake years in weeks, Lirae said coldly. He looked at her, she meant it. Arixians did not bluff, an unexpected moment. At some point, Elias realized he'd gone an hour without breathing properly. He sat back, rubbing his eyes. We're missing something, he said. One last piece. Lirae watched him carefully. What do you sense? Patterns, they always form patterns. Elias paced, hands on his hips. The transmissions aren't just coordination, they're signaling. Ritualistic, almost like. His mind caught fire. Call and response poetry, he whispered. Arixian High War tradition. They're not just organizing, they're affirming loyalty. Swearing themselves to Heshar. Lirae stiffened. That means they've already passed the threshold, Elias finished. The psychological point of no return. If we confront even one of them too soon, they'll collapse the coup underground and resurface years later. Lirae stepped closer, so we must draw them out. Yes, let them think they are safe. Her voice softened. Let them think we are blind. For a moment, neither spoke. The archive room hummed softly around them. Then Lirae said, Your mind works like a mirror, reflecting what mine cannot see. I understand now why your intelligence services value you. Elias coughed, embarrassed. It's just pattern work. It is brilliance, she corrected. He felt heat rise to his face, the first touch. As they turned back to the holographic display, Lirae reached past him to adjust a projection. Her hand brushed his wrist, barely accidentally. The contact was small, but Elias felt it all the way to his throat. Arixian's skin was warm, almost electric, pulsing faintly with light. The kiss of her biolights glowed against him like dusted starlight. Lirae froze for half a heartbeat. Then she slowly withdrew her hand. Neither said a word, but the air changed, charged, dangerous, alive, the coup's timeline. When the tension finally eased enough for Elias to breathe normally, he returned to the star map. They're preparing for a high-visibility strike, he said, tapping the convergence point. They need witnesses, chaos, blame. The Unity Convergence gathering is ideal. It is 5 days away, and they will move sometime during it. Lirae considered this, mantle pulsing slowly. A coup attempt during the most significant diplomatic event of the cycle. Her voice was quiet fury. Heshar intends to paint humanity as aggressors. Elias nodded. Assassinate you, he said. Blame humans, remove your mother, form a military council, and begin a cold war. Unless we strike first. Elias looked up sharply. Lirae. Not violence, she clarified. Not yet, but strategy. Pressure and control. She paced the room, biolights shifting with thought. We allow them to prepare, she decided. We watch, we confirm their positions, and when they begin their opening movement. We take the entire network down at once, Elias finished. She smiled slightly. You see, you are beginning to think like an Arixian royal. Is that a compliment? For the moment, leaving the archive, when the station's faint morning cycle lights began to brighten, Lirae shut off the holographic map. We meet again at 300 hours tonight, she said. Use the same route. Tell no one, not even your intelligence contact. Hellion Station's night cycle was normally silent, but tonight it felt watchful. Every hallway Elias walked through seemed heavier. Every closed door hummed with possibility. Every echo made the hair on his arms rise. He didn't know if that was intuition, or the growing awareness that if he or Lirae made a single mistake, the coup would ignite early and swallow them both. He reached the hidden archive chamber 2 minutes early. Lirae was already inside. Her posture was rigid, hands clasped behind her back, violet eyes locked on the holographic star map he'd left projected the night before. She looked less like a princess now, and more like someone forged for crisis. Luminous, dangerous, resolute. You're early, Elias said quietly. So are you. She turned toward him, and he froze for a moment. The light of the projection bathed her face, making the silver lines on her skin glow like constellations. Her mantle, normally soft and drifting, lay coiled close to her shoulders, an Arixian sign of heightened alertness. She was bracing herself for war. Something happened? Elias asked, stepping closer. Yes. Her voice was calm, but too calm. Heshar has summoned an emergency strategic briefing tomorrow morning, just before the convergence gathering begins. Elias' stomach dropped. That means they're activating. Yes, her eyes darkened, and it confirms your timeline. The map flickered as she adjusted the projection. Look, these fleet coordinates match the stanzas in the encoded messages. They intend simultaneous maneuvers across the outer colonies. Distraction, confusion. And then, the strike on you, Elias finished. Lirae nodded once. They will not succeed, she said, but we must play our parts perfectly. Lines crossed, lines held. They moved to the central table and began tracing last-minute movements. Each data point brought them closer to the moment everything would erupt. At some point, Elias realized he had stopped thinking of this as her fight. It was their fight. You're quiet, Lirae said without looking up. Thinking. Say it aloud. Elias hesitated, then exhaled. I don't like that you're the bait. You do not have to like it. You only have to trust that I know what I'm doing." "I do trust you," Elias said, then quieter, "more than I should." Lirae finally looked at him, truly looked. Her eyes softened, mantle brightening a shade. "You care," she murmured, not a question, a realization. "That complicates things," Elias said. "For the mission. For me." Lirae stepped closer, slow and deliberate, until the faint biolight on her skin lit the side of his jaw. "When this is over," she said softly, "we will address what has complicated you." But then the softness vanished, swept away by duty. "For now, we remain focused." Elias forced himself to step back. Focus, breathe, think. The tension snapped but did not break. Instead, it settled between them like a third presence, luminous, waiting. The first warning. Hours into their planning, Elias' handheld terminal vibrated. A low, coded pulse. A warning signal from colonial intelligence. He froze. "What is it?" Lirae asked. He checked the encryption. His chest tightened. "They've detected unusual energy signatures near your mother's vessel, cloaked transports, military grade." Lirae's mantle flared bright. "Then the coup is not just planning, they are staging." "Yes, and we have less time than we believed." She stepped back, mind racing. "They will attempt a coordinated decapitation strike. First me, then her, then the diplomatic hall." Elias nodded. "They need all three for legitimacy. If even one fails, the council fractures." Lirae inhaled slowly. "Then we must decide when to reveal what we know." Elias looked at her sharply. "Lirae, if we reveal too early, they scatter and regroup in shadows." "I know, but if we reveal too late." "I die," she finished calmly. She said it like a fact, like she'd already accepted it as part of the calculation. Elias stepped toward her before he could stop himself. "You're too calm about that. I cannot afford fear." "You should. Fear keeps people alive." Lirae tilted her head slightly. "Then tell me, Dr. Wynn, are you afraid?" He swallowed. "Yes. Of what?" "Losing you." The words slipped out, raw, unfiltered, before he could wrestle them back. Lirae blinked, stunned. Her mantle flickered violently, deep silver to bright violet, then settling to a warm, glowing pulse. Her voice, when it came, was quieter than he'd ever heard it. "I did not expect that answer." "Neither did I," Elias admitted. A long silence followed, not awkward, not tense, just full. Eventually, Lirae exhaled. "Then you understand why we must not fail." Final preparations. They spent the next hours stabilizing the final phase of their operation. Trusted security placed covertly. Communication relays mapped. Extraction paths planned. Timing synchronized to the second. Heshar's behavioral patterns analyzed. Varana's escape routes predicted. And above it all, the growing realization that everything hung by a thread thinner than starlight. When the final model flickered into place, Lirae stepped back. "It is done." Elias rubbed his face. "Barely." She ignored the comment. Her gaze drifted to him, soft, unreadable. "You should sleep," she said. "You need clarity tomorrow." "You should too." Lirae gave a faint, humorless smile. "I doubt I will." She moved toward the door, then paused with her hand hovering over the lock. "Elias." He looked up. Her voice dropped to something fragile and fierce all at once. "If I fall tomorrow." "You won't. But if I do," she insisted, "I want you to remember something." She stepped close, close enough that her light touched him again. "You were the first human I trusted. The first who saw me not as royalty, not as a symbol, only as myself." Elias' throat tightened. "And you," he said quietly, "were the first Arixian I feared losing." A breath, a stillness. Then Lirae reached up and the convergence gathering began under a veneer of elegance that fooled everyone except the two people who knew the truth. Elias Wynn stood in the upper observation deck of the diplomatic hall, hands clenched around a concealed terminal, eyes locked on the moving patterns below. Delegates from 12 species milled across the polished obsidian floor. Arixian emissaries shimmered like living sculptures. Human diplomats spoke in clusters. Aquatic envoys hovered in gel-filled support pods. The entire galaxy watched the ceremony through broadcast feeds, and somewhere inside that massive room, 4 assassins waited for their moment. Elias scanned the crowd, watching every face, every micro-gesture, every suspicious shift. His chest was tight with the pressure of knowing that if he misread even one clue, Lirae would die in front of thousands. Then he saw her. Princess Lirae descended the central staircase like a beam of starlight carved into the shape of a woman. Her silver skin shimmered beneath the hall's crystalline lighting, her mantle drifting softly behind her. When she reached the podium beside her mother, Elias felt the breath leave his body. She looked unbreakable, but she was, not today. Not against what was coming. Her eyes flicked up just once toward the observation deck. Elias nodded, the signal, they were ready, the first fracture. General Heshar stood close to the High Matriarch, posture rigid, expression unreadable. To any outsider he looked loyal, protective. But Elias had spent 3 months reading the man through encrypted metaphor. He knew a lie when he saw one. "Movement on Vector 6, whispered Terk, the covert human intelligence officer beside Elias. Tall Arixian male left column, hand inside jacket. "Not yet," Elias murmured. "Wait." The assassin wasn't reaching for a weapon. Not yet. He was aligning angles, measuring distance, preparing. Lirai's voice filled the hall as she welcomed the attending species. She spoke with practiced grace, diplomatic warmth, no hint that she was standing in the crossfire. But Elias saw the tension in her mantle. Only he would have noticed. Only he would understand what it meant. She was ready to die if their timing failed. The trigger. 30 minutes into the ceremony, Elias finally saw it. A second conspirator, standing near a decorative hollow column, shifted his weight subtly and raised his left forearm. A motion that looked casual, except for the hidden pressure switch embedded in Arixian gauntlets used for assassin strikes. "Now," Elias whispered, throat constricting. Terk didn't hesitate. "Team 1, engage," he said into the comm. Everything happened in a heartbeat. The first assassin lunged. Security exploded from the crowd. A second conspirator reached for an energy dagger, but was slammed to the ground by an Arixian guard Elias and Lirae personally vetted. Delegates screamed, some froze, some ran. The High Matriarch turned sharply, mantle flaring in alarm, and General Heshar moved not to defend, not to restrain, but to attack. His hand flashed toward Lirae, a concealed blade unfolding from his sleeve. Lirae ducked, reacting faster than any human could follow. But the second assassin was already behind her, dagger drawn. Elias didn't think. He didn't breathe. He only moved. He slammed his hand onto the emergency activation panel in the observation deck. The force field dropped, and Elias Wynn jumped. The fall. He hit the lower platform hard. Pain lanced through his leg, but he kept moving, sprinting through chaos toward the podium. Lirae saw him a split second before the assassin struck. "Elias." Her cry fractured the hall. Elias reached her as the assassin lunged, arm raised for a killing strike. He grabbed the assassin's wrist with one hand and drove his elbow into the Arixian's throat with the other. The blow wasn't enough to kill, but it was enough to shock him. Enough for Lirae to twist free and slash her attacker's leg with her own ceremonial blade. The assassin collapsed, and General Heshar realized the coup was failing. His face twisted. Honor burned away. He raised his weapon, not at Lirae, but at the High Matriarch. Elias roared now. The collapse of a conspiracy. Simultaneous strikes hit across 4 star systems. Dozens of conspirators arrested. Encrypted accounts seized. Ships disabled mid-flight. Officers who had plotted rebellion dragged out of command rooms and sealed in containment cells. The coup collapsed within seconds. Everything Elias and Lirae built, the models, the decoding, the predictions, worked with terrifying precision. In the hall, Heshar attempted one final charge at Lirae, but her mother's guard intercepted him, knocking him to the polished floor. A dozen weapons converged on the traitor in a heartbeat. Lirae's chest heaved as she watched the general's blade clatter away. And then she turned slowly toward Elias. He was on one knee catching his breath, blood seeping through his torn pant leg. "You jumped," she said, breathless. "You were about to be stabbed," Elias replied. "You jumped from the observation deck," she repeated, voice shaking between outrage and gratitude and something else. "I had good aim," he said weakly. "That was not good aim," she snapped. "That was reckless, that was irrational, that was—" Her voice cracked, and when she knelt in front of him, Elias realized she was trembling. "Don't ever do that again." "I can't promise that." She exhaled, mantle flickering between fury and relief. "Then I will simply have to watch you more closely," she murmured. Her hand touched the side of his face, warm, luminous, gentle. Around them, the hall fell into a stunned hush as security escorted the last conspirators away. Weapons lowered. Delegates exhaled shakily. The High Matriarch stood beneath the fractured ceremonial lights, mantle shifting in slow, controlled waves. But Elias Wynn saw none of it. He saw only Lirae. The princess moved across the hall with lethal grace, issuing orders in steady, sharp tones. Her bearing had changed, not into someone hardened by danger, but into someone clarified by it. She stood taller. Her voice carried differently. Survival had rewritten her. Elias watched her speak with the station commander, then with the human ambassador, then with her mother. Every time her gaze flicked his way, even for a heartbeat, something warm sparked beneath his ribs. He should have felt pride, relief, victory. Instead, all he felt was pulled toward her when the dust settles. 2 hours later, Elias stood beside a row of med-tech units as healers patched the gash in his leg. He barely felt the antiseptic burn. He sensed her before he saw her. "Your injury," Lirae said, approaching with folded hands, "is entirely your fault." "I can walk fine," Elias muttered. "You jumped off a balcony." "You were about to be stabbed." Her eyes flashed not anger, but a raw mixture of fear and indignation. "I knew the risks," she said. "The entire operation depended on timing. You jeopardized." "I didn't care," he cut in, not loudly. Just honestly. Lirae went still. The medtech quietly slipped away, likely sensing this was not a moment for witnesses. "You didn't care," she repeated softly. "I cared about stopping them, and I cared about you. Nothing else mattered." Lirae exhaled sharply, mantle rippling. "That is exactly the problem." "No," Elias said. "That's the reason I'm still alive, and the reason you are." Her eyes lifted slowly to his. For once, she didn't look like a princess, or a strategist, or a political symbol. She looked like someone trying very hard not to feel something she could no longer ignore. "The council speaks." A ceremonial chime sounded. The High Matriarch entered the medbay with a cluster of guards, her presence commanding absolute silence. Her gaze landed on Elias. "Dr. Wynn," she said formally, "your actions today prevented the collapse of the Convergence Alliance. Humanity owes you gratitude. House Sithari owes you far more." Elias bowed his head. "I only followed the evidence, High Matriarch." "And yet you leapt into danger for my daughter," she added pointedly. Elias opened his mouth, but Lirae spoke first. "He acted because he read the situation before any of us could." The High Matriarch studied him, really studied him, then nodded once. "Your contributions will be recorded in the annals of this alliance. But I suspect," she added with a faint, knowing curve of her lips, "that my daughter has her own acknowledgement to deliver." Lirae stiffened. "Mother." "Do not keep him waiting," the High Matriarch said. Then she turned and left with her guard, mantle shimmering like a dying star. The question finally asked. Silence stretched between Elias and Lirae until she finally whispered, "Walk with me." They stepped into a private garden corridor, quiet, empty, washed in soft amber light. Arixian flowers drifted with faint bioluminescent pulses. The distant hum of the station vibrated through the metal beneath their feet. Lirae stopped beside a crystalline archway. For several seconds she said nothing, just breathed, just steadied herself. Then she turned to him. "When this began," she said softly, "I believed you were avoiding me because you disliked me, because I wasn't human, because I was too much." "You're more than too much," Elias said quietly. "You're overwhelming. In ways I wasn't prepared for." Lirae swallowed, mantle dimming. "Then after learning the truth, I became angry, not at your choices, but at how little I understood the depth of your reasoning." She took a step closer, and then I became something else, something far more difficult to control. Elias' pulse hammered against his ribs. "What are you saying?" "I am saying," Lirae whispered, "that you are the first person outside my species whose presence unsettles me, whose judgment matters, whose safety affects me more than logic allows." Her voice trembled, the smallest fracture in her usually flawless composure. "And now that the conspiracy is ended, I finally feel free to ask." She lifted her hand. He did not pull away. Her fingers brushed his jaw, light as a whisper glowing faintly with her biolights. "Did you avoid me only to protect me? Or because you felt something you feared acknowledging?" Elias didn't hesitate this time. "Both," he said, then added softer, "and especially the second." Lirae's breath caught sharp, quiet, beautiful. She stepped even closer, their foreheads almost touching. "I needed to hear you say that." "Why?" "Because," she breathed, "I've been waiting to do this." She kissed him, not tentative, not hesitant, but with all the intensity she'd been holding back for months, sharp and warm and luminous, her mantle flaring in waves that lit the corridor like a rising sun. Elias pulled her gently closer, careful of her mantle, and kissed her back. When they finally broke apart, Lirae rested her forehead against his. "Tomorrow," she whispered, "the council will want you to join a joint human, Arixian security division." "I know, and I will request you be assigned to my detail." "I figured." Lirae smiled faintly, glowing in the soft amber light. "Good, because I am not finished with you, Elias Wynn, not politically, not strategically." And certainly not personally. Elias exhaled a shaky laugh. So this is only the beginning. Lirae laced her fingers through his warm,